Hey, good evening, everybody. We're hoping that we would be able to sit here and talk about what happened in Game One between the Kings and the Thunder, but that's not the reality. The reality is that the season is over, and on this show, Ryan and Sacktown and Jerry Reynolds, we give out our grade for the year. We analyze the year. We take your chat messages and phone calls if you so desire. And we kind of discuss what this team needs to do in the offseason. Gentlemen, you had the weekend to kind of dissect what you saw on Friday night. And Jerry, same old story with the Pelicans. The Kings just can't figure out a way to beat them.
No, it's pretty clear. When you got beat six out of six, you got to say the other team's better and just be done with it because it's provable by every stretch. But the length and athleticism of the Pelicans is just a tough matchup. Certainly Ingram was way better than I expected that he would be, and I thought that was the key. And then Murphy is. He just has big games against the Kings every time, it seems.
It sure does, Jerry. And the other thing, individually, the Pelicans are just better. So many times, I went back and watched a couple of the games, you end up in one-on-one matchups against them, and most times they capitalize.
Yeah, defensively, I thought, they simply could guard the Kings. They could simply guard the Kings better than the Kings can guard them. And that's, I think, to their credit, their bench, and I thought the benches are so much different. The Kings just don't have a real bench anymore.
No.
But when they can bring, 3 or 4 different guys in there that can really have a little bit of an impact, Nance and Marshall and Alvarado, those guys they're all.
Okay, so I've been thinking a lot about this over the weekend, and we want your grades on the totality of the year. And my grade is based on expectations for this year and what I saw last year. So a lot of people aren't going to be happy with my grade, but I'm giving them a D. And the reason why I'm giving them a D is they didn't make the playoffs. Okay. That's a big regression, regardless of how you think the West was last year and how the West was this year. They went from the 3rd seed to not making the playoffs, okay? They ended up with the 9th best record in the West. So even if you had the old playoff format, they would not have made the playoffs. 4 losses this year, gentlemen, to the worst teams in the league. Detroit, Charlotte, Washington, and Portland. 4 worst teams in the league. Had you only gone 3-1 in those 4 games, that would have given you 49 wins. You would have beat Phoenix in the tiebreaker, and you'd be the 6th seed. But again, I'm looking at the fact that the bottom line is this team was not one of the top 8 teams in the West this year. And for me, that is a very low grade, and that's why I'm giving them a D. Am I aware that they had some injuries? Yes. But guess what? Minnesota played a long stretch without Karl Anthony Towns. Denver played a long stretch without Jamal Murray. Phoenix played a long stretch without Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. I mean, I can go on and talk about injuries on other teams. The Kings weren't the only team in the league that had some injuries. So, Ryan, let's start with you. What's your grade for the season?
Grant, I looked at it long and hard like you did. I considered some of those factors and others, but when I take into account what the goal of this season was coming in, let's take out winning a championship. We know what they wanted to make the playoffs. They didn't do that. But if you just look at the hard statistics and you take the eye test away from it, Grant, this team regressed. The only categories this team got better offensively was offensive rebounds, turnovers, and made threes. Every other significant offensive category down. And defensively, they set out to be better defensively, Grant. Steals way up, blocks up. They got some more depth. Granted, it wasn't the depth we wanted. So I have to give it a strong C-.
Jerry, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I'd probably, I would probably give them a C based on the fact that I didn't maybe have the expectations that a lot of people did. I saw this as maybe if things went well and they could stay completely healthy, that they might be able to get 46 to 48 wins. That was just looking at the talent in the West. I felt that if those teams stayed basically healthy, the more talented teams, the Kings wouldn't fare as well. And so that's a part of it. I agree with what you said, Grant, on the especially the home court losses to terrible teams.
Horrible.
Every team in the league, the best teams lose to horrible teams on the road.
Yes.
Every year. I mean, all you have to do is look at the records. But to get beat at home, those are inexcusable. And so, that's why I dropped. But I mean, I just like Ryan said, I mean, they were a better defensive team. See, I thought really when the season started, I wasn't sure they improved themselves at all. When clearly teams they needed to beat had, and talent wise, and so when Vesnikov is your only addition of that's going to be your difference maker, and in my mind, early on it was pretty clear to me that he wasn't as good as Terrence Davis,
Right.
and so that's not a plus. And then of course he was hurt a lot, so that doesn't mean he can't be a good player. I'm always patient there because. Maybe getting healthy and all that, he can maybe do what they hoped he could do this year, but he didn't. And so anyway, but the expectations, I expected them to make the playoffs. I thought they'd be sixth at the best. What I didn't think was that the overall West would be, I knew they'd be good, but I didn't think it'd be a case where you almost had to win 50 games to get in the top six. I mean, that's never happened.
Yeah, it's very good. Very good. We are going to take phone calls. We enjoy your chat messages. And we are looking at all of the responses that we're getting. I thought B minus to start when 11 teams in the West 500 or better. I thought that would be a fair grade. Now I think it's closer to a C for this year. Fox and Sabonis showed they could be near all-star players, but besides Monk and Murray here and there, it was a stretch to expect breakout games by anyone else, starter or bench. Listen, Malik Monk, for the most part, had an excellent year. I think he'll be the sixth man of the year. I want to talk, though, before we get to some phone calls, I want to talk about Keegan Murray because we've talked a lot about him. He brings his glove to the field every game. Okay, his defense this year, I got to commend him. It was very consistent. His offense to me was too inconsistent for my liking. Now, I'm very well aware he only completed his second year, so I'm judging him on a curve. But I need to see his offense and his shooting, particularly from three, be more consistent than it was. I have high hopes for him. I think he is clearly part of this nucleus. I think he's a very big part of this nucleus, and I think he's only going to get better. But I need to see that next year, guys. I need to see his offense be more consistent.
That's a great point. I'm very confident you will. The strides he made this year, really solid in all areas. I mean, rebounding, defense, scoring, we're all up. He certainly showed more creativity off the dribble, getting to the basket more. You've heard me say this all along. I mean, in the second year, he's a lot better than Peja was. And it's true. He's also better than Tyrese Halliburton was in his second year. That's also true. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to be their level, but it doesn't mean he can't be. That's the more important thing. I always say, OG Anunoby, I mean, it was his third or fourth year before he had a year like Keegan had in his second. And so there's way more reason to be optimistic. And I think part of why I see it because a guy, he is available and he comes to play. Now, I think that the team needs to be a little more responsible to get him involved. He's not a guy, I always say he's a little bit like a Chris Middleton with Milwaukee when he was an elite scorer. But at times make sure you get him shots. Don't just sit around and say, well, take what the defense gives you. Make the defense give you something. So that's on him. I love him, though. I mean, I love the youth, but I agree. I mean, you want that 18-point a game score next year, but you don't need the 4-point nights or 6-point nights. I mean, that's all. I mean, off night you get 14 on a hot night. That sort of thing's what you're really looking for.
Yep.
Yeah. Jerry, the only thing I want to add on to that, it's well said. And Keegan, the big point to me is, what are the Kings' expectations of him? Because it seems like they're very big. And what's the timeline on his growth? He got a new body to a sense this year. He bulked up and he was really, really durable. But if he's a part of this long-term plan to be a piece, isn't this kind of the time where you've got to make that point to get him involved in exactly what you said, Jerry? So in some ways, did the Kings stunt his development this year?
I don't think they stunted it, but I to your point, I think you're right. I mean, I think they see him as a third guy, maybe even a second guy offensively on a better winning team, and or a third guy on a 50+ winning type team. And I think this next season is the season to show that. I mean, I think that that'll be a fair time to evaluate him in his third year to see, because if he can make another jump, and that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, you got to make a jump. Yep.
Yes, it's just a steady improvement. I don't expect him to go from 16 points a game to 32, but but if he can get to be a consistent 18, 19 point guy, now all of a sudden,
perfect.
That's where you need to get.
All right, let's get to some phone calls. We start with Zach. Zach, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
If we're talking about the grades, I'm thinking for myself, C+. It's a fair grade. I mean, we could talk about the good, the bad. The bad, we lost a lot of leads. And we lost 8 games with 15-point leads or more, and we lost 4 games where we had 20 points or more. That was the most in the NBA. That's not great. Offensive rating, like Ryan said, we went from 1st to like 13th. That's not great when we were number 1. Defense definitely improved, so I like that. We definitely improved our defense. We went from the 24th D rating to 14th for D rating. So we got a lot of it like kind of evened out, but offense is more important in the NBA, right? So you want to be consistent there.
All right, why C+ though? What? Because C+ is average. I mean, if you're looking at the scale, and the team didn't make the playoffs. So again, you were 9th in the West instead of 6, 7, or 8. Why C+?
I think there's some still good stuff to be optimistic about. I know you kind of went on Keegan a little bit, but I think his defense has been excellent and top tier. That's pretty important. And I think the offense will come. Like, he still increased his points by 3 points. I know the percentages weren't great, but I think that'll come later. And Keon Ellis, I think we found an insane player for a 3 and D type player like that. That's pretty important to have in the NBA that we didn't really know beforehand. And also playoff wise, I know we didn't make playoffs, and that's kind of like the D rating that you guys are giving, or D and C. But I know Kevin Huerter and Monk were injured for the last couple of bits, and if we won like 1 or 2 more games at the end, we could have made it. And also one thing, if we're going to compare to last year, I think it's also fair to compare to 15 years before that. We never made any playoffs. We didn't do anything in the 15 years before that. So just being in the competitive and part of the playing, and that's pretty exciting stuff to me.
Well, to me, that's a gimmick. That's what that is. The Kings wouldn't have made the playoffs under the old system, but fair enough. Jerry, any response to what Zach had to say? He made some very good points with some very good stats.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, Zach. I'm probably a lot more optimistic, because I look at it a little bit like you do. I really like this team. I enjoyed them. They're a winner when we haven't had very many. Probably the 8th or 9th best winning percentage the Kings have ever had. And so that means a lot to me. And with your best players still young, did they underachieve? Yeah, I think they did. To your point, I think they underachieved. But then they also, one thing you can't control is the opposition. And if they had played this same opposition last year, they wouldn't have won 48 games.
Great point.
They wouldn't have been third. So
great point.
But to me, it's clearly they're a nice, fun, winning team that's fun to watch, and they're not good enough to seriously compete in the West, in my opinion, as they stand. In other words, they clearly have got to get a couple more pieces that have enough talent to push for starting spots, if not take starting spots.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, I mean, we only lost 2 less games than last year. So that, the competition was much tougher this year, because OKC to Minnesota. We didn't expect those teams
Yeah.
to be as good as they were. And go ahead, Ryan.
No, go Zach. Finish. That's just our internal signal.
And I know a lot of people hating our depth this year, but just finding Keon Ellis will improve our depth for next year. And I don't know. I'm just still excited. My expectations for this year was between 6 to 8. And we were pretty much one game away from that. So I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
I think where we got to be really careful, and Zach, you make some great points, and thank you for coming on the pregame show so much this season. But the bottom line is, yeah, the NBA got better, but the Kings regressed in stats that really have no bearing on the NBA getting better. Let's look at free throws. Minus 16.8% this season in attempts. Free throws made, minus 21.6%. You know about the percentage, so I think we got to be careful with that, Zach, Jerry, and Grant.
Yeah. Those are good points there. Of course, I would some of it's easily explainable. That I thought this team's shot too many threes.
No question.
They simply shot too many threes, and they didn't get to the basket enough to draw enough fouls. Now their free throw percentage was poor, but they still should have been getting more of them because it's a multiplier in effect when you get teams in a penalty. And how often did you see almost quarters go by not being in the penalty, but they put teams in a penalty. So that's that'll get you beat.
Hey guys, De'Aaron Fox went from the inaugural Clutch Player of the Year to 4th in the NBA in missed field goals.
How about that? Hey Zach, we appreciate your input. Thank you very much for joining us. You're a pleasure to have on the show. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Take care.
Yeah, great job.
Let's talk more about De'Aaron Fox. Go ahead, Ryan. All right. To me, there were too many bad games from him. Okay, I'm putting him. His expectations for me are higher than anyone else on the team. Mm-hmm. I'm expecting way up here, and the reason why is because I've seen him play at that level, particularly in the playoffs last year before he broke his finger. Now, I don't expect him to be great every night, but he had too many subpar games for me, too many bad games for me. And I can't have that from my quote unquote quarterback. Okay. I can't have my quarterback throwing 3 picks once a month and losing those games. Okay. That's how I look at De'Aaron Fox. I need him to be more consistent. And I know I'm giving a tough grade to him, but to me, he took a step back this year. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. For me, if I'd have given him, say, an A last year, I'd probably give him a B because I thought, basically he didn't get to the basket as well. Now, the one thing he did do better defensively, he got a lot better defensively. And, you really got to factor that in a little bit. But he didn't have as good a year. And I thought he settled for the 3 way too much. And it's he's one of those guys that can get to the basket and find guys for threes, open threes, as opposed to kind of looking for the first option to take them himself, and he's improved in that way. But, he's not Steph Curry. He doesn't need to be shooting 12 threes a game, that type thing.
And I didn't like his act in January, Ryan. I'm sorry. I can't have my franchise point guard, my max player, blowing off the media for 3 weeks. I can't have that.
No, you can't. And in some ways where the Kings snowballed this year, Grant, it started with De'Aaron Fox, whether it was on the court or whether there was some miscommunications behind the scene. I don't want to put that all on him because we don't have the full story, but he's part of the story. And I look at what the 3-ball does for this offense. It doesn't give them that much more because the 3-ball is so important to them. But what De'Aaron Fox brings to this offense is so much different than what anybody else can. And when he settles for the 3, even though it gets the team maybe more points, it hurts the team, in my opinion, in the long run.
I don't disagree with that. I want to get to New Works Plumbing real quick, and then we'll get a response on that. They've got a fix for you. They are available around the clock, 24/7 for all of your plumbing needs and repairs. Just go to sackserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. That's New Works Plumbing. And again, folks, they're available 24/7 for your plumbing needs and repairs. Just go to sackserviceplumbing.com. That's New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you. Also brought to you by Bennett's Restaurants, Sacramento, Fair Oaks, and this Westside Grill in Rockland. Prime seafood and steak. Don't forget about the weekend brunch, the weekend prime ribs, 60 different types of wine available by the glass. Again, prime seafood and steak at Bennett's. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com, make a reservation, check out all their information. That's Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Glad to have you here as we wrap up the season. On If You Don't Like That, taking your phone calls. Also enjoy your chat messages as well. Want to get to some more calls, Ryan?
Let's do it. We welcome John in with Grant Napier and Jerry Reynolds. Welcome to the show, Fenchy.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Good, John.
We're doing good. It's good to see you in the dark because we don't really like seeing your face. So we appreciate when you come on in the dark.
Well, I'm sorry about that. I could get a little closer. I'm a little out back, but man, what a terrific season. I think comparably to the seasons we've had 16 years previously. So to give this, I think this is a C in the middle, right at a C. It's not a C plus or a C minus. It's not a D, Grant, because at least we did get to postseason. It's not the playoffs, but it was postseason. It was.
Listen, you're so used to dealing in mediocrity and crappy mediocrity that you're going to say, well, gee, you know what? We didn't go in the playoffs from 2006 to last year, so it's great just to have a winning team. You know, we need to move on and get rid of that stale, ugly taste that was the Sacramento Kings for 16 years and expect more, okay? There's all new players. There's a new general manager. There's a new coach. And, you know, yeah, we could always say, gee, it was better than what they did in 2010 or 2015 or 2020. But every sports team can do that. The Knicks are up 2-0 on Philadelphia. You know, they could say, gee, we're just happy to be there because between Patrick Ewing and now we've sucked and we've been bad. They don't think like that in New York. I just think that we have to change our mentality. That's in the past. Okay, this nucleus of players that were really put together last year after the trade to acquire Sabonis has been good. Okay, and it's been enjoyable and it's been fun to watch. But not being in the playoffs and winning 46 games to me isn't, well, gee, you know what? 3 years ago we sucked, and 8 years ago we sucked, and 15 years ago we sucked, so I'm okay with that. No. You shouldn't be okay with that. That's my opinion.
Well, I hear you, Grant, and I'm not okay with that, but it's better than it could have been. So that's where I'm going. It's better than it could have been. And, hey, just looking at the Golden Knights start tonight with so far it was 4-2 last I looked. We all got to get on with our season. And I'm a huge Kings fan, and I'm a sports fan in all different sports. So we just got to get on with our lives. And
thank you, John.
It's great fun, buddy. You guys. Thank you, Grant.
Thanks, John.
Go Knights. Go Gold Knights, guys.
Yes, sir. You know, listen, I appreciate John's enthusiasm and his passion. All I'm saying is, yeah, it's fun to have a winning team. Yes, it is. Because Kings fans know the drought that they were in. I get all of that. But if you just look at the present is that this is a exciting team. But as Jerry just said, and Ryan has echoed this as well, this is not a team capable of representing the West in the finals. They're just not, for a variety of reasons. First of all, they're not good enough. And second of all, there are a lot of really good teams in the West. And that's why, as we look forward to this offseason, guys, I don't think they can just bring back this roster and think that everything's going to be fine. If they bring back the same roster, it's going to be the same thing next year as it was this year. And then we have the uncertainty surrounding Malik Monk. And guys, you know this. If Monk leaves, that doesn't make your team better. Okay, you're going to have to really get creative on the shopping market to bring someone in that can do similar things that Monk did. And that's not going to be easy if you lose him.
No, I mean, it's, you know, that's kind of why I basically give them a C, because they didn't get an A. If they'd been a contender, I'd give them an A, and they're not going to be a contender with the exact roster they have, and especially if you lose Monk, you're probably your third best player.
Yep.
And so you can't get better losing one of your best players. You got to keep assets. So hopefully they can do that, and then I think obviously. you've got to bring in more talent. And now they're in a tough situation. Probably the mid-level exception may be the only way they can do that, other than trade and use the draft itself, maybe get you something or use it as an asset. But my contention is they've got to get another long 4 or 5 guy that's lively, that can really fit with Sabonis. You know, he needs to be able. I always said, you know, the guys that I liked in the past that for what reason or another, like whether it's Bobby Portis or Naz Reid, they need that kind of guy to fit with the team. And I'm going to be different than most people. I really think Keon Ellis is a third guard.
Yes, I agree. He's not a starter.
I think you've got to get really a more gifted player there. You know, not that you can get him, but I mean, just an example, Derek White that Boston's got, a bigger, longer guy that can knock down shots and affect the game and fit in with an outstanding one-on-one player like Fox. So to me, I don't know if Monty can do that, but you know, those
kind of have to.
You know, if you want to contend in the West, I think that's what has to happen.
It's going to be tough. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you can finish up that point, but I wanted to lead you into another subject, but please finish up on what you were going to say. Is it time to move on from Harrison Barnes?
No, I don't think it is time to move on from Harrison for many of the reasons that Jerry said. I don't think there was enough set plays this year. Mike Brown said that he was not calling a lot of plays compared to last year. So I want to see that swing back. But in terms of Grant, we've talked about what this team needs to get. And I feel like the second half of the season, it was blatantly obvious. They didn't have enough distributors. They had too many finishers. And you look at Demonis and you look at De'Aaron, both finish in the top 20 in turnovers this season. And it's because you put all of the focus on them. So when are the Kings going to get another point guard? And to your point, Jerry, the Kings' hands are going to be tied. They can't trade that first-round draft pick because they traded last year's. And the cap is projected around 141, and the Kings are right at about 151 right now projected.
Oh, yeah, they're in tough such shape. I mean, really. And, well, it's like the Harrison Barnes thing. I'd say, can you trade him? Sure, if you get somebody better. But really, Harrison, you need a better bench as well as starters. I mean, Harrison Barnes, if he's your 8th or 9th man, you're pretty good.
Good team.
You're a good team, and that's really kind of what we're. And same way with Kevin Huerter. If he's coming off the bench for you, you can be a real good team. But you need, in my mind, a couple of starters to add with Sabonis and Fox. And I will say this to your point, Ryan, on the turnovers, and I totally agree. I will say this. Sabonis' assist turnover ratio is terrific. Mm-hmm. He's well over 2.5 to 1,
which is very good.
Which is what most point guards do. Now, Fox's wasn't that good.
No, second worst in his career, actually.
Right. Yeah, and so at that position, especially, you should be stronger than that. So they definitely need somebody else that can make plays.
Chang, welcome to the show.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Oh, hey guys. So it's been, a privilege to be able to talk to you both, and now to you, Jerry, about Kings basketball. But I guess here's my grade breakdown. So an A would have been winning a playoff series. A B would have been a competitive first round series, so 6 to 7 games. A C would be a playoffs. D would be play-ins, and F would be no postseason. So for my own grading criteria from, I think, the expectations from last season, definitely I would give this team a D, but I think I'm a really easy grader because I want to give this team extra credit, so I'll give them like a C minus, just because I think if people want to add the context that Monk and Huerter were injured, and I'd say the roster is fully healthy, we would have been maybe a 7th and 8th seed and maybe made it into the playoffs, but I still thought that we were going to get swept or not have a competitive first round series. So to me, it's ranging from a C minus to like a D plus for my grading, just because I don't know. It was really disappointing that we couldn't make the playoffs. We made the postseason, but the fact that
you didn't make the you know what? Really, you didn't make the playoffs. I guess you could say you made the postseason, but you didn't make the playoffs, and that's the real key.
Yeah, no, and to me too. And I think especially with our team, I think we want them to have as much playoff experience every year. And to me, even with the ups and downs of this season, I was going to be okay if we made the playoffs and we got more experience. And the fact that we couldn't even get playoff experience for our core, to me, it's very disappointing because we always talk about how, maybe it takes you a couple of years in the playoffs just to get that experience for you to be a ready and solid team to make that jump. It almost seems like this year was a lost year because, all this ups and downs and we couldn't even make the postseason or the playoffs. To me, it was very disappointing.
Good points, Chang. Thank you very much for joining us. You have a good evening. All right. Bye-bye. Some good points. I'm okay with the grading. I do think expectations play into it a lot when you have a good roster, maybe not a great roster, but a good roster, and the excitement of last year and being in a 7-game series with the Warriors. It's a real blow to the stomach. It's a real stomach punch to a gut punch not to make the playoffs this year. I mean, it's really hard to think that, last year was supposed to be the start of a nice run, similar to what we had in, the Rick Adelman era where they were in the playoffs for 8 straight years. Well, now all of a sudden that momentum has kind of been screeched on, and now you got to start all over. And again, I think we all are in agreement. This team needs to be, I don't want to say rebuilt because I don't think it needs to be rebuilt, but there needs to be some moves made in the offseason.
Well, I do think too, it's one of those things to where the way I look at it probably a little different in some. I just look at the talent in the league and who in the top 7 are the Kings better than talent-wise. They're not more talented than the Pelicans. They're not more talented than Oklahoma City. They're not more talented than, right down the line.
Yeah, Denver, Minnesota, Dallas to me is an interesting team, but clearly I understand your point. I guess you could look at the Kings roster and say, well, who are they? Who should have they finished ahead of? Okay, well then let's say that I agree with you, and I actually do agree with you. Then that just goes to show you better make some moves in this offseason.
Yeah,
because again, the same point is if you bring the same team back and expect to be different in the standings, well, that's probably not going to happen.
No, guys, that's been my whole point. I mean, it's like, they didn't come too far off of hitting, probably hitting the level they should have hit.
Great point.
But the talent above them is better. I think it was established fair and square, and to bring back the same guys, you don't be surprised you get the same results.
Jerry, are we making a mistake by talking about what they need to do in the offseason in terms of talent before addressing what the identity of this team is?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think you got to get more talent before you even get an identity. I mean, I don't know what identity you have if you're, if you want to get better, because you probably can't get better as you are. I mean, you can do some things. We've talked about, I personally like to see them a little more structured offense late in games. Sure. I'd like to see, that sort of thing, maybe a little quicker, multiple defenses, things like that. But this is a talent league. It's a talent league. And if you're going to compete at the top, you've probably got to have at least 3 all-star level players, at least 3.
Good point. For all the negative guys that we are talking about, I'm more encouraged by the how they've improved on defense more than I was last year with how they improved on offense, because defense to me is more sustainable.
Well, first of all, I want to say I really appreciate all the chat messages, and Ryan, you bring up an interesting point and about the identity. The identity of this Kings team right now, to me, is they're a 3-point shooting team. That's what they are. I agree with Jerry. They took way too many threes. And, Brian, you talk about Mike Brown said, he didn't run, really didn't call that many plays this year. Well, the question I have is why not?
Yeah.
Like, we keep on talking about get Harrison more looks when he has mismatches. We didn't see that in many games. We talk about maybe running plays for Keegan Murray. We didn't see enough of that. So my question to Mike Brown is, well, why is that? Do you just want a free flow, freelance type of an offense? On nights when you're not making the threes, that offense isn't doing anything for you. Nothing.
Yeah, that's what I'd agree with. I mean, I like the free flowing. If everything's going well, you're getting the shots you want, you're breaking down the defense. Wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. We see that sometimes from quarter to quarter. And then the next quarter you're not. Well, you need to have kind of a plan B. All of a sudden the three is just like against New Orleans. The same threes they got against the Warriors weren't there. They were contested. It was a different thing, and so why are you going to expect the same results?
Yeah, Jerry, quick question based off this conversation. Could that be problematic for the guys in the locker room if it's the team dictating the shots and you have players like Harrison not getting them and Keegan sometimes not getting them?
Well, it could be with different guys. I don't think it is with them. I mean, I think that's almost part of their own faults. I mean, they need to be more aggressive, but I think they're such good guys, good teammates. They'll, especially Harrison, for a veteran guy, he's willing to kind of blend in to become invisible at times. And I thought at the end of the year, he, once the injuries to Monk and Herter, I think we saw him assert himself a little more. Yeah. But he should be like that all the time. And he's too good to have 2-point games and 5-point games and 1 rebound games. And so yeah, I don't think, I mean, I've seen teams where guys would be selfish guys, or guys are pissed about their playing time or their shots, how many shots they're getting. But I'd be surprised if that is part of the issue here.
Ryan, let's get to some more calls, buddy. Take who you want.
Let's do it. Let's bring up BJ Sal. BJ, welcome on with Grant, Jerry, and Rhino.
What's up, guys? Just got off of work and made it in just in time, and I heard the end of it, and I'm honored to be on this call with, of course, Nate. I love you and Rhino, but Mr. Reynolds, man, I really respect you and your coaching and your ideology of basketball. I just am really in line with. So I heard a little bit of what you and Nate was talking about, and for me, someone, I think Ryan had mentioned about an identity and the culture. I think there needs to be a culture solidified first through a mindset of tough, hardcore defense, kind of like what we saw when they were played against the Warriors. But I mean, who knows? Maybe the Warriors, I mean, of course, whatchamacallit missed 10 shots. But for me, it's like everybody, you got this free-flowing, so-called free-flowing offense. Now, I'm an old schooler. I like the late 80s, early 90s, mid 80s, and they're averaging a lot of points, not shooting as many threes. I'm all about, let's take what they give you. And so I give the Kings a C-. Like Rhino said, a strong C-. Mine's more of a weak C- because I expected them, the expectations were high. I was a little worried that we didn't make a move to get I don't know who we could have gotten. I mean, we wanted somebody. I'm glad we didn't trade just to get somebody. But I also think that they have to take their lumps. And in order for a team to take their lumps, I think there needs to be some leadership in that. I love the coach and I love the ideology. I like the idea of how they have a free-flowing offense. But there comes a time when you are up by 20 and you're just, things are just skidding off the cliff. You need to run a set. And there's nothing wrong with the mid-range, because I rather have.
You know what, Big Sal, we understand where you're getting to. Let me have Jerry respond to that, because I think you bring a very good point on that. So I'm going to put the brakes on you for a minute, Jerry. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Sal. I mean, I've kind of said that all year, that's my real complaint. And I love this team, and I think the coach does a great job, and they're a fun team. But there's times, when the momentum has changed, and all of a sudden those open looks aren't happening, or you're not getting into your offense for this reason or that, that's when I like to, go to some play sets, just a different look, a tempo change, because obviously momentum has changed. And so I think a little more structure. And I take it a step further. I think in particular, the last 4 or 5 minutes of a game. I think you watch some of these teams, they have what we used to call in the old days need plays, but it's the same thing to where, okay, we need to get Jalen Brunson a shot. We need to make sure he either gets a shot or he's in position to find somebody for, your best players and, with a live dribble in a way to get something going. And I didn't think we did that nearly enough, or I feel like we should do that more because, NBA, so many games come down to the last 4 or 5 minutes. And how many times really has this team probably has not been as effective down the stretch as I think they should be.
Big Sal, great question. Really appreciate you joining the show, even though you're sideways. I don't know if you know that or not, but but that's there you go.
Oh, you look
Hey.
good. You look good sideways too. Anyway,
Hey, Big Sal, good stuff. We really appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, you look good sideways.
Thank you. All right, good stuff. I thought he was, doing that on purpose just to screw us up. That's what I thought. But he brings up a very good point. I mean, there were too many times this year where on the post-game show, Jerry, we'd be on and we'd be talking to folks, and it just seemed like there were too many times where the players, particularly Fox and some others, were just not aware of the momentum of the game, the score of the game, the clock. There's just like too many bad possessions when you really need a good possession. And that's what drove us crazy when we talk about relinquishing some of those big leads. When the momentum is changing and you really need a good possession, there was too much quick shooting of the basketball, not taking what we thought was a really good shot. And that's what I point out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think, it's the NBA, and you can be up. How many 20-point leads did we see evaporate? Now, every team loses leads, and it happens every night in every game. But when it's happening to you, you really kind of need to say, okay, well, let's try something different here. We need a basket. We need to run something, get a good shot. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to change it because you may miss them.
Yep.
But I mean, I just thought too many times, you'd see 20 points just evaporate without really changing anything, just hoping that you're going to be able to spray the ball out for threes.
Ryan, do you want to update folks on what's going on with the auction?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not too late to bid on our auction. So get over to ifyoudon'tlikethat.com/auctions. You can hit the menu button. We've got 3 great t-shirts up, all from the original Jerry Reynolds show, signed by Jerry. And now one of them, Jerry and Larry Bird, the other Jerry and the great Wayman Tisdale, Tizzy, and the third, Jerry Solo. Each one comes with a special experience, and we really appreciate all the support this year. You guys know that this is how we fund the channel, pay our monthly dues and such, and keep bringing you great guests and have Jerry around so much as well. So thank you for all your support, and go check out the auctions. They end on Thursday. They're starting to heat up, so get your bids in now.
Yeah, and again, all you got to do is go to ifyoudon'tlikethat.com and go to the menu and click on auction. There's the the website, ifyoudon'tlikethat.com. All right, let's get to another phone call, Ryan. Let's get some more folks in there and get their opinions.
Let's do it. Alex, we'll get to you in just 1 second, but Zach, we bring in. You're on with Grant Napier and Jerry Reynolds. Zach, you there?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hey, so as far as grading, I give him a D. I was more than times than not this season. I was more disappointed, even after like some wins. I'm thinking like, wow, like that they barely won that game. An A season would be if they took a team to a 7-game series in the second round. I don't know much about if they should keep Barnes or not, because just given his demeanor as a player and everything. But I have a question. As far as that 13th pick that they're stuck with, so if when they draft a player, are they not allowed to trade him that season?
You can trade the pick.
And the player. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't believe. No. You cannot trade this year's first round pick because they traded because they were involved in a trade for
You can't trade your number one pick in simultaneous years. You
Correct.
can't you can't trade your number one pick 2 years in a row, but you can trade the player after you draft him.
Okay, so I mean, hypothetically, say they keep him, does that eat into like any amount of money that they can give Monk?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
And
They
as
have-
far, wait, go ahead.
So
Ryan.
Zach, really quick, just so we can clear it up, because I've seen a lot of questions here. They have an early bird period where the Kings can sign Malik Monk, but it's capped off. It's about 78.4 over 4 years. He can be offered more on the open market if teams want to go into the penalty, etc.
Okay. And it's just like my opinion. As far as like upgrades like this offseason, I would just like to see like a player that can like play there in the backcourt to like alongside Fox. That's just my opinions.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Zach.
Yeah, one thing I'd say on the Monk thing, the teams really can't sign him unless they've got the cap room. So they can't go over the cap to sign somebody else's free agent. They can go over the cap to sign their own free agents.
Correct.
In normal circumstances, but I mean, there's a limit on Monk. But you know, I was just looking at the teams that have the cap room. There's only probably about 4 that have the cap room to offer him, and that and the 4 I went up would be Utah, San Antonio, Orlando, and Philly, and I really, you know, and I'd really be surprised if one of those teams doesn't make, you know, I could see certainly for Utah would be knowing Danny Ainge. I could see where he, because Monk is still young enough to be part of what they're doing.
And I'll tell you, he would love Orlando because
on-
he's a golf junkie. I'll tell you right now, don't think that wouldn't factor into him. If he gets, he loves playing golf. He's a golf junkie. So I mean,
And they're a good team, guys. They're gonna be good.
Yeah, they're a playoff team this year, and they got young stars and Bancaro and Wagner, and so so I would say, and also San Antonio. Now they didn't do anything, but that's the other point I think needs to be said is that next year Houston and San Antonio are going to be much improved, and don't forget Memphis.
That's right. That's
right. Memphis was one of the better teams in the league before all the crap happened to them.
Yep.
And
great point.
It's I think the West will even be better. So, but to just summarize, that's why the Kings have to get more talented.
Good point.
Have to.
Let's get to some other calls, Rhino.
Yeah, let's do it. Jerry, you are popular. Everybody's lining up tonight to talk to you, my friend. Alex, welcome into the show. You're on with Grant and Jerry.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Good, Alex.
Good. Just want to say I feel honored to be in the presence of greatness because of the great Jerry Reynolds. So, nice seeing Jerry and of course everybody else. Yeah, go Jerry. As far as grades go, I would say a D plus, and if I want to be exact, I would say 69%. And I would say that because we were right there. We won the playing game. We almost got in the playoffs. That's why I think we were right there, 69%. If we would have won that playing game, I would have said a C, regardless if we won the first round or not. But just because we were right there, I think it's fair to give them a 69%, almost passing, but not quite, just because technically we did regress from last year. Also, too, what I want to say is I think a lot of us fans need to get used to possibly getting uncomfortable. What I mean by that is we're limited on assets. So I know everybody loves Keegan and everybody loves the players we have, but we're very limited on what we can do. And obviously this team has to get better because, as you guys said, Memphis, they're going to be better. Houston, the Spurs scare me the most out of everybody because Wemby is an alien. So those are 3 teams that might pass us already. So, I think we have to get used to being uncomfortable. We have to make some crazy moves. And if that includes Keegan, I love Keegan, but man, we're just limited on what we can do. And I don't want to get worse next year. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Hey, you know what? Jerry traded Billy Owens for Mitch Richmond, and that was one of the great trades in franchise history. And then the Kings traded Mitch for Chris Webber, and that was not very popular at the time. The reality is that sometimes you got to make bold moves. The Warriors traded Monte Ellis to Milwaukee, and it really started their great run of winning championships, they also drafted very well. But I'm not opposed to trading Keegan Murray if I felt that makes my team better. But I got to be assured that I'm getting an all-star caliber player back if I'm going to trade Keegan Murray. But, again, I don't disagree with what you say. And, Jerry, you've been in that side of the coin. You know what it's like to make tough decisions. And you also know that nothing's certain. And sometimes you roll the dice and you're gambling when you're doing it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel I loved Keegan, but yeah, if you can trade him, for someone that you are confident is better, I think that's what you do. Just say if Utah wanted to trade Laurie Marketing for him, I'd certainly think you'd want to consider that. He's still young and he's bigger and longer, and has proven a little more. Just using those kind of examples, but the key there is when you give up a young player that could be a star, much like a Halliburton, you better get a star back, which of course the Kings did, and so that'd be my take on Keegan. It better be, if you're trading, it better be for a star type himself as well as a need.
It has to be, Jerry, it has to be for a player that you already know what can do. When you traded for Mitch, you already knew what he could do. All right. You knew what, that was pretty much your sure thing. You knew what you were getting. And to me, that would be the same thing with Keegan. You can't just go, well, we really hope this player develops. And no, it has to be already that guy.
Great point.
Yeah. Like with Mitch, I mean, he was rookie of the year, and then the second year was better. So I didn't see any risk at all. I know that people say, well, Billy Owens is going to be the next Larry Bird. And I said, well, he may be, but I haven't seen it yet. So, and he was not
unless he had a heart transplant, he was never going to be Larry Bird.
Yeah, he wasn't. Anyway, so.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I only bring that up just because my favorite King of all time was Peja Stojakovic when I was a little kid. That's the reason I became a Kings fan, because of Peja. So when they traded him for Ron Artest, I was in shambles. I was crying. I was sad. I was a little kid, but I was super sad about it. But Ron Artest said, hey, I'm going to bring these Kings to the playoffs, and he did. So after that, I'm like, okay, it's a business. I'm not going to cry anymore. So I'll just get it. Whatever makes the Kings better, I'll take it.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate you joining us.
Good points. Yeah.
Very good. Very
good.
We
remember that trade. And, and of course, Peja was not the same Peja. Bad back and really never had a solid year after that. And so I thought that was a smart move by Jeff Petrie, because Artest did come in and make the team better.
Hey, I want to tell you about Fosters and Paws, a group of passionate animal advocates. They work primarily with dogs in shelters. They also work with families, and particularly young people, teach them the lifelong benefits of having a pet. And they're looking for donors, fosters. They're looking for you to adopt one of their puppies that they currently have. And all you need to do is go to fostersandpaws.org/adopt. That's fostersandpaws.org/adopt. That's Fosters and Paws. All right, we got a lot more people that want to. Let me get that graphic off. I apologize. Let's get to some more phone calls, Ryan. We got so many people that want to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. We bring Jay into the conversation. Welcome to If You Don't Like That.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good, Jay. Thank you very much.
I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to have a platform to speak, as a Kings fan. So thank you guys for allowing me on here.
It's our pleasure.
For the overall season grade, I definitely would say I would give it a C for sure. And the way I see the future is, and I've been stressing on it since literally the last second of the Pelicans game is, okay, Malik's out of here. What are we going to do now? Because I'm not going to, get my hopes up. If he stays, he stays. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Or but I definitely like what the last guy said. We may have to be open to looking into what we could get for Keegan. And as far as I know, I think the only untouchable on the Kings list is De'Aaron Fox. So that may mean even possibly a Sabonis move. If we can get something huge, I know a lot of fans in the chat are probably like, what the heck is going on? Are you crazy? This, that, and the third. But, you want to win. And De'Aaron has truly been the one that we drafted and believed in, since Kentucky. We drafted him and everything. So we definitely have to be open-minded. I don't see that happening, trading Sabonis, but the Keegan might be more of a realistic option. And so I want to ask you guys, what do you think we can get in return for Keegan? And what would you be willing, what would really push you to that decision to be like, okay, we'll throw him in the package.
Well, personally, to me, I would not trade him unless I know I'm getting an all-star back in return. Because
what does that all-star look like to you? Like,
well, that's a good question. But if you trade for Keegan, you would trade for him as an organization thinking that he will be an all-star. I think that's why Indiana took Tyrese Halliburton.
Right.
They felt that he had that all-star caliber potential and that he would be. And if Sacramento got an all-star back in return, I'm using that as an example. That's the only way personally that I would trade Keegan Murray.
Okay. That's definitely reasonable for sure.
Yeah, I think I'd mentioned just the last caller. Not that I certainly wouldn't want to trade him because you why trade anybody if you're not getting somebody better, and that's hard to do, especially. But say like a Laurie Marketing of Utah.
Well, there you go.
Because he's 6'11" power forward, which is
and
maybe
he can
more
shoot that three
need.
ball too at that height.
But the point is, I don't think that trade would be made. I think Danny Ainge, that's his franchise piece. So he's a young guy, so there you are. But I mean, to me, that's what you'd have to have, somebody of that caliber that is either an all-star, near all-star, and still reasonably young. Now, if you can do that, that's fine. And I'd trade, if you could trade.
And that's very important that you said that they have to be reasonably young. Continue though. That's very important.
There's no reason to get somebody 35 years old, and that's the problem you got with trading Sabonis. I don't think you can get somebody better.
Right.
I mean, Embiid and Jokic ain't walking through that door.
No. Wait, here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing to me
and at that point,
about Keegan Murray. You have to be very certain. Sorry, buddy. What'd you say, Jay? Oh, you have to be very certain that you're not trading a franchise type of a player. Now, I believe that the Kings got better when they acquired Sabonis, but the reality is they traded a player that is now the franchise piece for the Indiana Pacers, and they're going to build their entire team around Tyrese Halliburton. And I look at Keegan Murray, and Jerry, maybe I'm overvaluing him. I see that potential in him where he can be an all-star caliber player. And that makes me a little bit leery for a guy that's only completed his second year. When I look at his ceiling, I think his ceiling is he's not anywhere near there yet. And that makes me a little nervous.
I really think that
go ahead. I'm sorry.
You guys have you guys have the seniority. This is your platform.
No, well, the only thing I'm saying, I've said this so many times, and because I like Keegan more than maybe most people, but I really kind of studied the history of the thing a little bit, in that his stats for his first 2 years are better than Page's in every way. They're better than OG Anunoby's in every way. They're actually better than Tyrese Halliburton's was in his first 2 years. And a lot of people don't. All you have to do is just check. I mean, I didn't make them up, and so it's like, okay, here again, I trade.
You got something,
but but it better be somebody's going to move the needle.
Can I hop in? Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
No. I know you've been itching over there. I see it.
I've been itching a little bit on one, guys. I got to go a different way, okay? And Jay, how long have you been a Kings fan?
I've been in Sacramento since I was 3 years old. I'm originally from North Carolina, but for like the past 20 years, I'm 23. So
okay, cool. So you've been a Kings fan nearly as long as me. All right. Here's the deal. We've seen this story before. Fox has been here for 7 years and he's been to the playoffs once. Sabonis has been here 1 year or 2 years and he's been to the playoffs once. So for me, if you're looking at making a major shakeup, I am looking at a trade for De'Aaron Fox. I'm keeping Keegan. I'm building around Sabonis, Keegan. You bring in a solid point guard that can facilitate score a little bit, and you bolster the bench, because I just don't think an isolation point guard works with this open style the Kings want to play. And I'd say it about any point guard that plays De'Aaron's style.
Okay.
I'm open to that. Go ahead, Jay.
I think someone over here in these comments said, what about Kevin Huerter and Barnes? Those are like the trade package. Those are the first we're eager to give up. But let's be realistic. It's a business, and that's not very appealing to most franchises out there, like Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, you're not getting a franchise-altering player for that type of a trade.
Exactly. If anything, we might be able to get like some type of mid-level C-tier player, maybe, that might be younger than Barnes, just so we have a little bit of longevity on the wing. But we might have to end up. I really like this guy on the Kings, but we might have to throw him in there. Trey Lyles, someone who's a little bit younger than Barnes, a little bit taller. He's a little bit, he's kind of slow for the Kings, especially when you have someone like Sabonis already on the floor. He looks very heavy-footed. He's phenomenal, obviously. But we have De'Aaron Fox. We have like a Davion Mitchell, a Keon Ellis, like all these fast guards. And then you throw in Sabonis, who kind of slows us down a little bit. He's a playmaker. So, I give him the pass, of course. But like having Trey Lyles and then Harrison Barnes and all these older, slower guys is just going to slow us down when I really think Mike Brown likes to push the pace. And especially you have the fastest guy in the NBA on your team.
Well, I don't think you're going to find a faster center than Sabonis. There isn't one.
Yeah, unless you're looking
there isn't. Maybe. That's not even debatable.
Yeah.
He runs the floor better than Embiid or Jokic or Davis ever had.
Yeah, he does.
And he does it every night in every game.
Oh, yeah, hustle for sure. Hustles.
Yeah, I mean, I know what, in my mind, I know what Sabonis is, and he's not going to protect the rim very well.
No, he is what he is.
He is who he is. He shoots 3-point his percentage. He should shoot more of them because he shoots them better.
And they leave him open too most of the time.
Yeah,
they give him a lot of room.
They do. They dare him to shoot. Hey, Jay, great call.
Yeah, it's a great, some great points.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I just, it's like the Herter and Barnes thing. It's like, if you could trade him for Paul George, that'd be a good move. Well, that ain't happening.
And then again, Paul George is like 32 or 33.
And there's risk there with his contract and his availability.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I want 32-year-old ACLs on my team.
No.
Yeah. I'm with you there. Yeah.
Thank you, Jay. Have a good day.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Have a great night. Good call.
Thanks, Jay.
Very good
call.
Excellent call.
First of all, I would be open to trading anybody on this team, including De'Aaron Fox, and it would start with a conversation in private. Do you want to be here? I mean, that would be my first question. And how much do you want to be here? And because I got to tell you, there were times this year where he didn't look like he wanted to be here. And that concerns me a little bit. And again, that's just a perception. That's not based on talking to him or talking to the coaches. That's just the way I perceived it. So that's the first thing. Are you 100% committed to being the guy for this franchise? That's where it starts for me when I'm meeting with him.
Yeah, he's a marvelous talent, and you'd have to. Those are, like you say, that's a good point. You want to know where you're going there. But it'd really be hard to improve yourself. But I would say everybody's tradable. I mean, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was traded.
Yes,
Wilt Chamberlain was traded. Oscar Robertson was traded. So
Wayne Gretzky was traded, Jerry.
Yeah, I mean the best in the history of the sport. So everybody's tradable, and the key is if you're going to trade one of the best, you better get something back equal. Yeah. And of course, in most of those cases that we just mentioned, they didn't. Those teams actually, it killed them to make those trades. They didn't replace them with anywhere near the talent they lost. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get to some more phone calls.
Let's do it. Jason, welcome into If You Don't Like That with Grant and Jerry.
Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. When I was doing sales, there were three things that I asked my customers. What do you want? What do you actually need? And what can you afford? And the third one is the one that determines the first two, ultimately. And I think here, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think Fox, there's some personal things. Being around athletes, I've been an official for 27 years, and you can tell when players are having issues. And he, for sure, this season was having issues. Not sure what it was, but he was definitely having issues. And Grant, you know this too, being in lacrosse. I hate to say this, but I played football at San Diego State, so I'm a huge Aztec fan. And I played with Marshall Falk. And I think there were 30 guys from my team the 4 years that I was there that went to NFL. And you could tell people that have it and that they want it and that things that are special. And it's hard to explain to somebody that's not played sports at a high level, but you can just tell this team had potential. And there's a few little tweaks that this team needs. But I think ultimately it relies on the front office and the head coach. because when players don't have a clear direction in life and what they're expected to do, it's just, you can see what we got in this season. That's what it looked like. You're right. Like Fox didn't look like he wanted to be here. And to me, like, just, I think it was the Golden State game. You could tell Fox wanted to win. He wanted it bad, and he played amazing. And then, of course, and against the Pelicans, he looked like he was helter-skelter ball. It looked like junior high basketball. They looked lost. So I think really where it starts is, if we're going to look at as Kings fans, is what is the GM? What do they want? What's the direction? What's at the end of the game, the day? What do we want at the end of the season? Are we building to a championship team? If that's the case, you have a player. To me, Sabonis is a lot like Karl Malone. I mean, everything goes through him. But the guard is not a John Stockton. I mean, it could be if De'Aaron wants it to be, I guess, I mean, with the speed. But you have a tandem like that, and we have sharpshooters. So to me, like last year, they were incredible. And the free-flowing offense worked really well. But this year, it's like the coaching was trying to imprint and push something that I don't think the personnel was really ready for. I don't think we had the right personnel. And they were going to try to run it back. But yeah, we got better defense. But look at the offense is terrible. And so there are flashes of greatness. But I think this is an issue of identity. So starting at the end, what can we afford? Like, what do we really want to look like as a team? And I think that's really where it starts.
Good question. You know what? Thank you for the call. You bring up some great points. Listen, I'm not on here saying Fox wants to be traded. So for you idiots on the chat line, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that's the first question I would ask him when I sit down with him about his commitment to this franchise and what does he want. Because I do want to build the team around De'Aaron Fox because I think he's a very special talent. I'm just saying that would be how I would conduct that personal meeting with De'Aaron Fox. I'm not saying he wants to be traded. I'm saying that would be the first question I would ask him.
I think one thing too with De'Aaron, I've always, I mean, I think the last couple of years have been very good. I think he's capable more, and I think that was a good call. Really question, it's like the game against the Warriors. I'd agree 100%. I mean, he was really engaged and focused, and obviously when he's like that, he's as good as any guard in the league. I guess my feeling is probably a lot like the callers is that I'm not sure he's like that all the time. I mean, that's the one thing I'd give Sabonis credit for. He may not play well sometimes, but there's never time when he's not engaged and focused and competing. I mean, you just can't say it if you watch it. I mean, and so I think with De'Aaron, you'd like, as he matures, just a more consistent, tough-minded focus on the job at hand.
All right, I want to tell you about Gold Country Veterinary Hospital. They are a full-service hospital for your pet. And the bottom line here is when your pet needs to be seen, they are available. So think about that. Your pet needs urgent care, Gold Country Veterinary Hospital will be available to you. They have the latest in technology, the type of surgical procedures that they do from dentistry to ACL to, I mean, I've talked about it. I've read some of the things that they do on shows. It's absolutely unfreaking believable. They have the latest in pain protocol management that is faster healing for the pets. Again, bottom line, when your pet needs urgent care, Gold Country is available, located in Auburn, serving the foothills, obviously Roseville, the greater Sacramento area. That's Gold Country Veterinary Hospital. Guys, we're going to wrap up this show here in a minute, and I just want to get some final thoughts from this panel. And first of all, thank you very much for the chat messages, for the phone calls, and everything else. I'm going to end it on this way, okay? I still think this is a good team, but I don't think they're anything more than a good team with this present roster. I don't have a crystal ball any more than you guys do. I don't know if Malik Monk is coming back or not. I think it goes without saying the Kings are going to be a better team with him than without him. But the one thing I'm pretty confident in saying is this general manager and front office staff cannot stand pat and go, we're going to be fine. These guys are going to be able to get us to where we're going. No, I've already seen it for 2 years. They are what they are. They're not going to be better than the top 4 teams or top 6 teams in the West next year if they stand pat. So I think it's time to roll the dice a little bit, guys.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, I like this team. It's a fun team. It's a winning team, but it's not good enough in the way the West is getting without additional talent. NBA is a talent league. They probably really need to, I think, get 2 starters. I think certainly, all of a sudden your bench gets better, even if you can't trade anybody. Certainly. So they can do a few things there. But as much as I like Keon Ellis, and I'll say it one more time, I think he's a third guard. He's a perfect guy to bring in and change the game to play with maybe a more complete 2-guard type. So get more talent, get more talent. I have a lot of faith in Monty McNair and Mike Brown. I think they're terrific at their jobs, but this is going to be a big summer if, in fact, you want to compete in the West, because the West is going to get better. It ain't going to get worse.
That's right. Rhino, final thoughts?
The only thing that I would add is last year the Kings really didn't beat themselves too many times. And to me, the story of this season is the Kings beating the Kings. So you guys summarized it perfectly. Only other thing I'll add, best fans, most knowledgeable fans in the NBA. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your support. We're going to be doing a lot more programming, so make sure you subscribe so you know when we're doing shows. Give us a thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. Really good calls today. A lot of good messages on the chat line. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye, everybody.